neurotic and rather pathetic mess.
Bill Gates.
His impression, I mean, this is so paradoxical, is a sort of super nerd, and yet he's one of the richest and most successful men in the world. Maybe in the future all men will be like Bill Gates.
Good for the game. Plastic surgery.
It's rather touching to see that people, can place their faith in remaking themselves, remaking their innermost selves by tinkering with the outermost layer of, their bodies. It's only, to be deplored when people feel they need to all look the same. And a lot of Hollywood starlets do begin to resemble one another. They come off a kind of production line where personal idiosyncrasies and quirks of character reflected in the face are cut away, with the surgeon's scalpel. That's a shame.
Genetic engineering.
Again, it's something with all sorts of frightening possibilities. Parents in the future are going to be able to select, the characteristics, the psychologies of their offspring, down to a talent for flower arranging or psychopathy or whatever is fashionable, at a given time.
Would you like to have had that option?
No, I'm glad I didn't. I'm glad that I had to rely on just the shuffle of the gene pack, and that nature, made those choices.
Return of communism in Russia.
God, do people never learn? It's a sign of desperation, isn't it? That the older Russians, I think it's mostly confined to the elderly, should long for the days of absolute certainty on the police jackboot.
You've always seemed to have evaded left and right. Is that deliberate?
Evaded? In what sense?
I can't really pin you down to any particular political position. Ever. You see one point seems to contradict the other.
Well, it's just that sort of British party politics has never kind of matched my own sort of outlook on the world, partly because I wasn't brought up here, and I find the perpetual division between Labour and Tories, it's a very British thing. It doesn't sort of translate into, the sort of my more international background that I had. And also, it reflects the English class system, I think, in particular, because I don't think it's so much a sort of Scottish phenomenon either. There's something about, the English are stuck with this class system, which has a powerful hold on life here and shapes almost every aspect of life here. We're one of the few countries in the world where, the class system is an instrument of political control. The Americans have a class system. It's not so evident, but they do have one. The French and the Germans and the Danes and so on all have, stratification of some kind. It's here alone. The class system is an instrument of political control in a way that it's not in America. It keeps the hoi polloi down at the other end of the lifeboat, while the upper classes sit clustered around the captain with one hand on the tiller and the other hand on a large revolver. Now, until the class system is dismantled, I don't think there's much. I think this country condemns itself to sort of second-class status.
Greenpeace.
I think that's another branch of the children's crusade. I think it has, very little to do with the reality. I think it's rather dangerous in many ways because single-issue fanatics are able to manipulate, the mass media in a very skillful way, and they can set agendas that hide all sorts of obsessions of a rather, dangerous character. In fact, my last book, Rushing to Paradise, is exactly about, the hidden agendas that lie behind sort of extremist fringes of the ecological and feminist movements.
It's the one book that you've written, and I'm glad you've brought it up, where the brushstrokes are a little broad, and Dr. Barbara, who's the kind of the crusading eco-feminist who wants to create a man-free matriarchy on this island of the albatrosses, which she's trying to save. It's the one book whereby I feel as if you're thumping an anti-environmental tub, or any kind of tub, rather than exploring the issues.
No, I think that's unfair. In fact, I enormously admire Dr. Barbara Rafferty in Rushing to Paradise. She's loosely based on one of my heroines, Margaret Thatcher. And
Didn't know that.
I tried to sort of convey something of the energy and shrill drive of the younger Margaret Thatcher, the Margaret Thatcher of the early 80s, in the way Dr. Barbara